Princess! See her lips! One of the girls screamed, laughing so loud it echoed through the palace garden. Princess Uche tilted her head. So this is the mouth you use to greet people in this palace. No wonder your voice sounds heavy. The lips are carrying load. Her friends burst into another round of laughter. Then, a calm, firm voice cut into the scene like a knife. Princess! That's enough. Princess Uche froze. The laughter died instantly. Chika wiped the sweat from her brow and adjusted the rough cloth of her dress. The sun was hot over the dusty village, but she didn't complain. Life had always been like this, hard, quiet, and simple. Her mother had taught her to work with patience, and that was exactly what she did, day after day. She had heard rumors that she would soon go to work in the palace. At first, she had been nervous. The palace was a world she had only seen in dreams. But something inside her told her she could survive anything if she stayed calm and humble. Little did she know, her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. In the village palace, the princess sat with her friends, laughing as if everything was right with the world. Because of her bad character, everyone avoided her. She was someone who expected to be admired, worshipped, and obeyed. Her eyes fell on Chika the moment she stepped into the servants' hall. The village girl was small, shy, and oddly still in her movements. But those lips, full, round, and unusual, made the princess snort. She couldn't resist. You're the new maid. Not very promising, amusement lacing her words. Chika didn't answer. She just bowed her head and went about her chores. The princess couldn't let it go. She mocked Chika at every turn, tripped her while she carried trays, whispered names to her friends that would make anyone cringe, laughed loudly whenever Chika fumbled in front of her. Village girl, your hands are too slow for this palace, she said one afternoon, grinning cruelly. Yet, Chika never replied. She kept working, moving with precision and grace, as if the world's insults were nothing. Each laugh the princess threw only made her more determined to make Chika squirm. But each ignored insult only made the young maid's quiet strength more noticeable. Then came the news that shook the palace. A young prince from a neighboring kingdom, known for his intelligence and humility, would be staying for 3 weeks. Nobody knew exactly his mission in the palace, but the princess's heart raced. This was her chance to be seen, to shine. She imagined his eyes on her, drawn to her beauty and charm. But on the first day, her plan failed. The prince walked past her, polite but distant, and instead noticed Chika, quietly serving tea without a word. Princess Uche's friends nudged her. Why is he looking at her? One whispered. Princess Uche clenched her fists. The village girl had no title, no beauty like hers, but the prince's gaze lingered. And that gaze would change everything. Princess Uche's envy turned to obsession. Every day, she tried to make Chika look foolish in front of the prince. She spilled drinks, whispered insults, and staged mistakes. But Chika remained calm, her eyes gentle, her smile faint, never rising to Princess Uche's provocations. One evening, as the sun set behind the palace walls, Princess Uche muttered to herself, pacing her room. Why is he ignoring me? I am the princess. I am the one he should notice. That girl, that village girl, she cannot steal what is mine. The fire of jealousy burned in her, but Chika's quiet strength hid a secret power no one in the palace could see. Chika woke early the next morning, humming softly as she swept the palace corridors. She had learned quickly that palace life demanded more than hard work. It demanded patience, humility, and a steady heart. Every glance, every whispered insult, she met with silence. Some nights, she would lie awake wondering why the princess hated her so much, but she never let it affect her work. Meanwhile, Princess Uche plotted. She had begun timing Chika's chores, watching for the slightest mistake, ready to pounce. If she thinks she can steal the prince's attention, she's wrong, Princess Uche muttered to herself. Pride and jealousy twisted in her stomach. The palace, once predictable, now felt like a battlefield she had to win. The prince's curiosity about Chika grew daily. At breakfast, he asked the king questions about the servants, casually noticing the quiet maid who never interrupted, never argued. She seems different, he said softly. Thornley smiled, enjoying the prince's polite attention and the rising tension in the palace. Princess Uche, seeing the prince's glances toward Chika, could hardly breathe. She tried everything, more elaborate outfits, practiced smiles, careful words, but the prince remained polite, yet distant. Each time she tried to draw him into her charm, he politely redirected the conversation, often ending up noticing Chika in the background. One afternoon, during the palace feast, the princess deliberately handed Chika a tray with a wobbly stack of glasses, expecting a spill. But Chika carried them with skill, walking gracefully as though the palace floor had been made for her. The prince's eyes widened slightly, a small smile playing on his lips. Princess Uche's face turned red with frustration. She could barely hide her anger. "It's impossible," she whispered under her breath. She had mocked this girl every day, yet here she was, steady, calm, and catching the attention the princess had thought was hers alone. It was a quiet humiliation, but one that burned worse than any insult could. The palace was suddenly thrown into chaos one evening. A special dinner had been prepared, and the prince was about to taste a dish when Chika noticed something strange. A slight smell, a faint bitterness, something was wrong. Without hesitation, she whispered to the prince, stopping him just in time. The prince looked at her in shock. "How did you notice?" he asked, his eyes wide. Chika only shrugged slightly, her calmness unshaken. Princess Uche, watching from across the room, froze. The village girl she had humiliated had just saved the prince's life, and in that moment, the room seemed to tilt against her. That night, the palace was quiet, but Princess Uche could not sleep. She paced her room, her mind racing. Chika had no title, no beauty that rivaled hers, yet she had done what the princess could not: capture the prince's admiration and respect. Every act of mockery, every insult, now felt like a mistake in hindsight. Chika, on the other hand, sat quietly in her small quarters, folding her simple clothes with care. She did not boast, she did not celebrate. Her work had been done, and she had acted only because it was right. Outside, the palace walls seemed to hum with tension, a silent battle brewing between Princess Uche's envy and the maid's quiet strength. Princess Uche woke the next morning with her face still burning from the night's humiliation. She had watched Chika save the prince's life, and her heart thumped with a mix of rage and disbelief. "I cannot let this girl take everything from me," she muttered. She decided to watch Chika more closely, ready to trap her in some mistake. Chika, as usual, moved quietly through the palace. She polished silverware, swept the floors, and continued with her duties. She didn't notice Princess Uche's watchful eyes, nor did she care. Her thoughts were simple: do the right thing, stay calm, and survive the palace. The prince requested to speak with Chika alone during the afternoon chores. He was curious about her calmness, her grace under pressure. "You never panic," he said quietly, studying her face. "Even when I can see everyone else around you worried or shouting." Chika looked down, shyly smiling. "I just try to do what I know is right," she said softly. The prince nodded, impressed. The princess, watching from the corridor, felt a sharp pang of jealousy twist in her chest. She stormed off before anyone could notice, her mind already spinning with schemes. Princess Uche began setting small traps, hiding cleaning tools, spilling water near Chika's path, whispering false instructions to servants in hopes of embarrassing her. But each time, Chika navigated the palace chaos effortlessly. Each failure only deepened Princess Uche's anger. One evening, Princess Uche confronted Chika directly, her voice cold. "Do you enjoy being liked by everyone here? Even the prince?" she hissed. Chika didn't reply. She only kept sweeping the floor, letting her silence speak louder than words. Princess Uche stormed away, furious that this girl could withstand her cruelty so easily. The prince arranged a small private dinner for Chika, thanking her for saving him. They sat in the palace gardens, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and the setting sun painting everything golden. "You have a quiet strength I've never seen before," he said, sincerity in his voice. Chika lowered her eyes. "I've never wanted attention, she said softly. I just try to do what I must. The prince's admiration grew, and wordlessly, he began to trust her judgment and her presence more than anyone else's in the palace. Princess Uche, spying from a distance, felt her chest tighten. Every moment Chika spent with him was another dagger to her pride. Princess Uche couldn't bear it any longer. That night, she confronted her reflection in the mirror, whispering curses at Chika's calm face in her mind. I am the princess. I deserve to be admired, respected, loved. Not her. Not that village girl. Word of Chika's courage and quick thinking spread through the palace. Even the king, who had watched quietly from the shadows, smiled. The prince asked to spend more time with her, seeking her advice, listening to her thoughts. Her quiet wisdom was impossible to ignore. Princess Uche tried desperately to regain control. She wore her finest dresses, practiced her sweetest smiles, and spoke softly to the prince at every chance. But the prince's attention was fixed elsewhere. Each attempt ended with him politely acknowledging her, then turning back to Chika. Princess Uche's frustration reached a peak she had never known. Finally, the night of the grand palace dinner arrived. Princess Uche was poised to shine, convinced she would finally outshine the village girl once and for all. But the prince had other plans. As he lifted his glass, his eyes searched until they found Chika. He stood and announced, in a clear, commanding voice, that the person he wished to honor and spend his life with was not Princess Uche, but the quiet, humble maid who had proven her courage and wisdom countless times. Everywhere was silent. Princess Uche froze, her laughter cut short, her face pale. The village girl she had mocked was about to become the next queen. Princess Uche sat frozen at the grand dinner, her mouth slightly open, unable to form the words she wanted. Everywhere was silent except for the gentle clinking of glasses. Everyone's eyes were on Chika, who had remained composed, her hands folded neatly in front of her. The prince stepped closer to her, smiling warmly. Chika, he said softly, your courage, your patience, your honesty, they are worth more than all the titles and jewels in this palace. I cannot ignore what I see in you. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. Princess Uche's cheeks burned with shame and disbelief. This was the moment she had feared but never thought possible. Her carefully built world had crumbled in a single sentence. Later that night, as the palace grew quiet, Princess Uche wandered the corridors, her mind racing. She overheard the prince speaking to Chika in the garden, his voice low but firm. I have known who you were all along, he said. Your father saved my father's life long ago. You were hidden for your own safety, but fate has brought you here. The king appeared behind them, his face unreadable but calm. I placed her here to test my daughter, he said quietly. I needed to see her heart, her character, and her humility. Now, princess, you must decide who you truly are, before it is too late. Princess Uche's knees nearly gave way. She realized, in that chilling moment, that everything she had done, every insult, every plot, had been meaningless. The village girl she had despised all this time was not only noble by blood but also destined to hold power that Princess Uche had dreamed of. And the question now lingered. Would Princess Uche rise above her envy, or would she be swallowed by it? The palace brimmed with life. Drummers rehearsed in the courtyard, cooks hurried through the halls, and the air carried the scent of roasted yam and spices. It was the week of the royal wedding, the union between Prince Muna and Chika, the humble maid who had stolen every heart. But in one quiet corner of the palace, Princess Uche sat in darkness, her mind storming. She couldn't sleep. Every sound of laughter outside made her chest tighten. They will all forget me, she whispered to herself. They will all bow to her. Her pride screamed louder than reason. And in that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. If she couldn't stop the wedding, she would ruin it in the worst way possible. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and golden. The courtyard glowed with flowers. Guests filled the palace yard, waiting to see the ceremony begin. Chika stood quietly in her simple but beautiful gown, hands trembling slightly as she waited for the drums to signal her walk. But in the kitchen, something deadly simmered. Princess Uche had slipped in hours earlier, disguised in a servant's wrapper, and poured a strange white powder into the prince's drink, a substance meant to make him fall violently ill before the ceremony began. Her plan was cruel but simple. The wedding would be halted, the blame would fall on Chika, and the prince would never look at her the same way again. As the drink was carried out, Princess Uche hid behind the doorway. But fate had other plans. The head servant, a woman who had watched Princess Uche grow up, caught a faint bitter scent and raised the alarm. "Stop!" she shouted. The guards froze. The drink was tested in front of everyone. Within minutes, the truth surfaced. When the king arrived, his face was as cold as stone. "Who did this?" he thundered. Silence filled the room until the cook, shaking, confessed everything, how the princess herself had ordered the act, swearing him to secrecy. All eyes turned to Princess Uche, standing at the edge of the hall, her face pale. The wedding stopped that day, but not forever. The king called for judgment before the entire court. Princess Uche stood before him, trembling but defiant. "I only wanted to protect what was mine," she said, her voice breaking. The king looked at her with eyes heavy with disappointment. "What was yours was your honor, princess," he said quietly. "And you have lost it. By royal decree, she was banished from the kingdom for 3 years. No carriage, no crown, just a small bag and a long, dusty road." As she was led out of the palace gates, she looked back once, her eyes filled with tears and regret. Chika, standing beside the prince, felt her heart ache. "She's still the princess," she whispered. The prince nodded solemnly. "May exile teach her what privilege could not." The wedding was held a week later, quiet but beautiful. The people sang for the humble maid who became queen. Yet, far beyond the palace walls, under a fading sun, Princess Uche walked alone, dust rising at her feet. In her silence, one thought echoed again and again: if I ever return, it will not be as the same woman.